Welcome to the Voice of Reason, Carolina charm with California wit. Whether it's the law, politics, relationships, or recipes for the kitchen, the Voice of Reason is online and in all our hearts. Now, please welcome the Voice of Reason, Mr. Ted Durden.
Good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Voice of Reason. I am your host, Ted Durden, and the show we're going to do this evening is going to be a little bit out of the norm. Normally, right after I do the intro, I jump right into the political arena. This evening, I'm going to do something different, and it's going to be more about culture, and maybe even specifically Black culture. There was some news that were made recently, a ruckus that was caused by this woman, this principal in Houston, Texas. I have a lot of admiration for this woman because I believe in everything that she did. Her name is Carlotta Outley Brown, and she is a Black principal at James Madison High School in Houston, Texas. Now, here's what happened, and I've witnessed this myself. Some of you may agree, some of you may vehemently disagree, and that's fine, that's your right. But this woman right here, she spoke to me about what she did. And here's what she did. She came up with a dress code for the parents. Now, anybody who has had school-age children, I don't care if we're talking pre-K, kindergarten, elementary school, junior high school, some of us have seen as parents what other parents wear when they come to that school to drop their kids off or to pick their kids up. And sometimes it is just absolutely appalling, and it's just shocking. One of the examples that this woman gave, Principal Brown, was there was a woman that showed up in a blouse where you could see her nipples. And again, these are minor kids that are being exposed to this. You had other women that were showing up with booty shorts, cheeks hanging out. You got men showing up, fathers, grown men, dropping off, picking off kids. And when I say men, I'm talking about anybody that's 18 years or older. They could have been even in their 30s or the 40s, because as a 61-year-old man, I've seen that too. Men that are 40 years old walking around with the pants hanging around their thighs, with belts on, and their drawers showing. I don't get that. I will never get that. I don't even understand the women that are attracted to that. I just don't. And so what this principal did is just logical. If there are rules in a place of learning that says your children have to come to school dressed a certain way, why shouldn't that apply to the parents? Everybody knows the parent is the first role model. And even like Maya Angelou says, when you know better, you do better. So if it is not okay for your child to go to school with the butt cheeks hanging out, scantily clad, young men going to school with the pants hanging around the thighs and the drawers showing, or wearing tank tops or whatnot, why would it be okay for you to show up? If your daughter cannot go to school with rollers in her hair, why is it okay for you to show up to pick them up or drop them off? You're their example. If it is not okay for you as a father to go up to that school with nothing but a jacket on, no shirt, pants hanging down around your thighs, drawers hanging out, why would it be, if it's not okay for you, if it's not okay for your child, why would it be okay for you? It's about having a standard. And of course, she's caught a lot of flack about that. There are some parents that will walk up, fathers and mothers, aunts and uncles, in jeans that are ripped up, torn up, because boys wear them just as much as the girls do. Men wear them just as much as the women do. And it's exposing more than it's covering up. And again, why is that okay? I don't get that. Because, see, there was 3 things that my kids hated, and that was age-appropriate clothing. Now, just because you're an adult, you're grown, you can choose and decide whatever it is that you want to wear. But if you're going out in public, why not make yourself presentable? Why not wear appropriate clothing, especially when you drop your kids off at school? Why would you want them to see you dressed differently than what you expect them to wear when they're going out in public? And like I said, this principle has gotten a lot of flack because, of course, no grown man and no grown woman wants to be told what to wear. But if it's for the greater good, why not? If it is for the greater good, why not? Now, there was one gentleman by the name of Zeph Capo, and he was the president of the Houston Federation of Teachers. You know, he made reference to another teacher, another principal that tried to do the same thing. Well, the problem is what that other principal did is she was trying to come with a dress code specifically for the mothers because she was trying to indicate that the way that the mothers dress was inviting rape. And, of course, she got ran out of town on the rail, and she should have, because that's just stupid. And if anybody knows me, I can't stand stupid. But what this woman is doing is appropriate, and I applaud her for it. And it makes me think of something that I personally experienced myself. My youngest son, Jordan, used to have dreads. And the woman that did his hair, her name was Precious. And about 50 feet from her salon was either a daycare center or it might have been K through 5. I really can't remember. But here's the point. I parked the car in front of that school one day, and there was a sign in the window, and it said, "No parents on cell phones are allowed inside." I thought, well, that's kind of curious, but okay. And every time I dropped my son off, that place was closed. Well, one day, I just happened to be there during a weekday, and they were open. I said, okay, now here's my opportunity. So what I did is I walked over, knocked on the door. The owner, proprietor of the place, she came to the door, and she asked me, are you here to drop somebody off, pick some? I said, no. I don't have any kids here. I don't have any minor kids this age anymore. I said, but I have got to ask you something. This sign that you have in your window that says, "No parents on cell phone are allowed inside." I'm like, why is that? Her response to me, really should not have surprised me, but I'm sorry, but it did. And she said, "Sir, you would be surprised. There are fathers, there are mothers, there are aunts, uncles, sometimes there are even grandparents. They're on the phone. Now, the woman may be on the phone with the baby daddy or the father. The father might be on the phone with the baby mama or the girlfriend or the wife. And they're yelling and screaming and cussing at each other in front of these children while they're even dropping off their own children." And she said, "Oh, no, I can't have that." So yes, I had to come up with this sign, and it was hard at first. She said it was hard to enforce this at first because I would stop them at the door. She said for the first 30 days, I had to stand outside the door and let them know you cannot come in here with this cell phone, and explain to them why. And of course, she said she got some pushback, but eventually she told the parents, if you want your child to come here, then this is the rule you're going to have to follow. And eventually she said the majority of them acquiesced and followed the rule. Some got offended and they took their children elsewhere. And the woman said, well, I didn't have anything to lose anyway, because I can't have these grown people coming here talking like that in front of these children. And again, I applaud her for that. And I don't understand what's wrong with having a standard. For some reason, for some of us, black, white, brown, yellow, purple, green, polka dots, whatever. It's like we eschew a standard. And I don't get that. And I don't think I ever will. And it brings me to another personal experience. There was one day where one of my stepdaughters came home and she was upset because at this Catholic school, this Belizean teacher called a little black boy the N-word. I got upset. She was upset. I went to the school, filed a complaint. And the bishop called a meeting. So during the course of the meeting, the bishop said what he had to say, and then he opened up the floor to discussion. What shocked and dismayed me and disappointed and disgusted me was there were people that were actually defending what this teacher did. I just couldn't believe it. So after hearing enough, I stood up and I said, my piece. And I said that word has no place in the school of learning, in the place of academia. A teacher's responsibility, or anybody at that school, is to build a child up, not to tear them down. Immediately, some gentleman stood up behind me and told me I needed to sit down and shut up or he rocked me to sleep. Now, most of y'all don't know what I look like. But at any rate, I'm no punk. Ain't no thin man, ain't no small man. So I just spun on this man and said, hey, look, let me tell you something. Don't let the suit fool you. I'll knock your punk ass out. And immediately they shut everything down. And me and the gentleman up talking, everything ended up being fine later on. But my point is this. I don't understand what's wrong with having a standard. Now, and it's like I said, if you want to use that word in your home, if you want to use it amongst your family, that's your business. That's your business. But it has no place in the school of learning, in the school of academia. I would like to believe that, like myself, all parents want is for their children to have a shot at life, at a good life. But you have to lay a foundation first, and that foundation begins at home. There has to be rules. There have to be morals that they have to abide by. You have to instill that in them just to give them an even shot. And I don't know if I've said this on my show before, but I'll say it tonight. My mother told me, God rest her soul, when I was 5.5 years old, before I started first grade, because while I grew up, I didn't do pre-K, I didn't do kindergarten, I didn't do none of that. She said, in order to succeed in life, you have to be twice as good and twice as smart as a little white boy standing next to you. And I'll remember that to this day, and I've instilled the same thing in my children. The exact same thing. There's nothing wrong with having a standard, which brings me to my next point. I am a master at communication. I have an extensive vocabulary. I consider myself to be extremely well-spoken. I believe that my life's journeys and my experiences have brought me to this place, have defined who I am and how I am, how I conduct myself in every aspect of my life. I used to get criticized a lot for the way that I spoke. Often by my contemporaries at the time growing up, why you got to talk white? Here's my problem with that. It's not about talking white. Communication knows no color. It knows no race. They're just words on a page, on a screen, in your mind. It's all about effective communication. That's what it comes down to. And when I learned about being able to effectively communicate, it meanders, it leaks, it spreads into every fabric and every aspect of our life, how we deal with friends, how we deal with family, how we deal with loved ones. If you are not effective at communicating, often you find yourself like a leaf buffeted in the wind. You don't know which way to go. You don't know which way to turn. Education is important. Anybody that tells you anything less is a fool. They just are. I think communication is extremely important. It allows me, and it has allowed me, to connect and communicate with people on all varieties of levels. I'm as comfortable as talking to a brother in the hood as I am at a president or a CEO at a Fortune 100 or 500 company. And that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Slang, ebonics, they have their place. But there's nothing wrong with having a standard. I'm going to continue on with the subject matter right after the break.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Ted Durden, brought to you by Turchin Law, 818-230-3110. If you need any assistance with employment, labor, or workers' compensation law, call Turchin Law, 818-230-3110. And if you like The Voice of Reason, please subscribe and tell a friend. Now we go back to The Voice of Reason with host Ted Durden.
There was a poem that was written some time ago by Rudyard Kipling. And I think it very nicely summarizes and adequately puts exactly what I'm talking about. And the poem is simply called If. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good, not talk nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Truer words were never spoken. There's nothing wrong with having a standard. It lifts us, it exalts us, it gives something for our children and their children and our grandchildren, something to strive for. There's nothing wrong with having a standard. As parents, as a father, as a mother, we want to see our children attain more than we did in life. I started out from very meager, humbling beginnings, working on my father's 210-acre farm since I was 5 years old. And I look at what I am today and where I am today. And I challenge my children to do better than me in a variety of aspects of my life. urge them on, spur them on, coax them on, encourage them. I don't make my children's life easy, because then they would take too much for granted, and I would encourage you to do the same. There's a prayer I still say. I'm a religious man, but not a fanatic. I do not ask God to remove the obstacles from my path. I simply ask Him to give me the ability and the courage to climb over them. Because it is in those times when your mettle is tested and it is forged, from which your strength is drawn. There's nothing wrong with having a standard. And as we come upon Mother's Day in just a few weeks, who for a lot of us is the only parent we have, that mother who has been there at the very beginning, through good times and through bad, through triumph and through tragedy. I would encourage each and every one of you to take the time to thank her and appreciate her. And that can occur in a myriad of forms, in a myriad of ways. On my next broadcast, I'll talk about a Mother's Day dinner that can be made for them, for your mother. But ask her what it is that she wants. You can show your appreciation and your love of her in a myriad of ways. But there are times when Mama's been on duty 24/7, 365. And sometimes, really and truly, as much as she may love us and love us all, sometimes Mama just wants to be left alone. Sometimes Mama just wants to be by herself in quiet, reading a book, sitting by a window, or watching a movie. There's nothing wrong with having a standard at all. There's nothing wrong with wanting something better for yourself, for your children, for your grandchildren. Don't let anybody ever tell you anything different. Don't ever let anybody make you feel bad because you do have a standard. So you may be subjected to ridicule. I was. But it did not dissuade me. It did not discourage me. I gathered myself up and I moved forward. There's nothing wrong with having a standard. It defines us. It gives us something to aspire to reach for. Because without a standard, without a goal, where are we going? You might as well be like that hamster on that wheel, just running in a circle with no direction, and you get off at the end of the day, and you just tired. You just tired, because all you did was run in a circle. You accomplished nothing. You did nothing. You made nothing. There's nothing wrong with having a standard. When you know better, you do better. And I think that's enough for me preaching on that subject for right now. So I think I'll talk a little bit of politics. I'm going to try to keep this kind of short and sweet because we are slowly running out of time. Barr testified before the Senate today. Didn't see it, didn't watch it, but heard about it. Some would think that he was treated unfairly. I don't. I think the questions that were posed to him were legitimate. But again, I think the Democrats are going about this all wrong. They want to see the full Mueller report. They're aware of the fact that Mueller wrote not only a letter, but also made a phone call to Barr because he was upset with his portrayal of his report. The simple fact of the matter is, one thing we can say for certain. Mueller did not find that there was any collusion between Donald Trump. Now, there were people in this campaign that acted inappropriately, and they were convicted and sent to jail. But as far as Trump was concerned, no, there was no collusion on his behalf. Now, of course, Republicans wanted to just end just there. But here's the problem. Trump got saved by his subordinates. Now, he did an interview, or somebody asked him. It wasn't really an interview. I think he was heading to the White House in a correspondent yelled out to him about his opinion that in the Mueller report that there were subordinates, there were staffers who saved him because he asked them to do things that would have been tantamount to obstruction of justice. But the staffers did not feel comfortable, didn't feel good about it, so they didn't. And for all intents and purposes, that saved his noogies. Because while he may have attempted to obstruct justice, at the end of the day, he didn't. Now, were there several instances where he attempted to? Yes, he did. But did he accomplish that? No, he didn't. There might be only one scenario in which he could possibly be directly accused of obstructing justice. And that was when he fired James Comey, because James Comey would not drop the investigation into Michael Flynn. Everything else, the staffers made sure that they didn't cooperate with him. So the other thing you have to prove when you talk about obstruction of justice, and it's always going to be about a matter of perspective, is his intent. Now, the way Barr described it, and I think he was very shrewd in this sense, I give the man kudos for it. He said he thinks that Trump was simply a frustrated president who felt that he was being falsely accused and falsely investigated, and so he was doing what he thought was necessary out of frustration because he felt that he was being unfairly targeted. That's what he was trying to do. Now, let's look at that for a second. You have to remember the type of man who was elected to our highest office in the land. He came from the private sector. Now, while G.W. Jr. came from the private sector, you have to remember he was also in politics for a while. He was the governor of Texas. Donald Trump has no such experience in the political arena. He doesn't. And so he was trying to treat the White House, and I think even continues to this day, of treating it like it's his own business. His own business. And so as a CEO of his own company, he was accustomed to shutting everything down whenever the whim struck. And I believe Barr, in that sense, that he was simply frustrated and he was behaving in a fashion as he always has as a president of his own company. So there's an argument that can be made on his behalf for that. Do I agree with it? No. Do I believe it? Hell no. But it's an argument. It's an argument. So unless you can definitively prove what was in his mind, was it his intent to really obstruct justice? And now I know I am splitting a very, very fine hair. I know that I am. And that's okay, because I do this sometimes just for fun. But the point is, can you call him acting out of frustration to stopping an investigation that he felt was unfair and politically motivated? Or was he really, 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 really trying to commit crimes and high misdemeanors by obstructing justice? I don't know. I don't think he's going to get impeached. I think I agree with what Graham said, that the Democrats are doing everything they can to keep this in the political spotlight while he's running for re-election, to try to soften the sand beneath his feet. That's what I think they're trying to do. Whether or not it will be successful, I don't know. But here's my caution to my Democratic partners, to my Democratic political nominees, those seeking the presidency. You need to offer up something more than being anti-Trump. You need to offer up something more than that. And I'm telling you right now, these progressives, they don't do it for me. They don't. You have to understand one thing also. Old people like myself, we are the cornerstone of the voting bloc. We vote more than any other age category, period. So the Green Deal, that's a non-starter for me. What Bernie is proposing as far as, cutting or being able to write off student loans, I find that intriguing because I have 2 boys in college. But a lot of stuff that they're promoting, socialism, I can't get with that. I cannot. Well, that brings me to the end of my show. It has been my absolute pleasure this evening. Please be sure to tune in the next couple of weeks while I plan to regale my listening audience, you, with a Mother's Day dinner that's going to knock you and her socks off for those who choose to cook for her. My name is Ted Durden, and it has been my supreme pleasure to bring to you the voice of reason. And remember, ignorance only succeeds when rational minds do nothing. Good night.
You've been listening to The Voice of Reason, hosted by Mr. Ted Durden. The Voice of Reason is produced and directed by Appel & Associates and is part of the WorkCompMatters.org podcast channel. All opinions expressed on The Voice of Reason are the sole opinions of Mr. Ted Durden and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of his advertisers or the WorkComp Matters channel. For The Voice of Reason, my name is Steve Appel.